Chapter 6. Awakened. The two supreme attacks pushed against each other with an invisible force. The arrow shook, its shaft bending and creaking against the weight of the ball. The sphere expanded to an unfathomable size, lava leaking from spots near where the arrow had collided. The shock waves that they created lifted me off the ground and into the sky. I was shot back away from the attacks, bouncing across the dark floor. My arms snapped back, sending piercing pain through my body. Gritting my teeth, I fought through the pain and brought my eyes back up toward the terrifying scene. Light bent and broke where the two attacks met. The flaming ball and arrow were still in the sky, both fighting to destroy the other. Lava burnt through the ground as it leaked from the sphere. Its blue glow was being dyed black by the black flames that fell from the arrow. A loud bang blasted from the center. Bang! Another shockwave blasted toward me from the center of the collisions. It struck me, sending me farther back. Bang! Another one came flying toward me. I lifted my one functioning arm to defend myself. The fury of the wave cracked it, sending me tumbling back once again. As I looked down, I saw a deep purple bruise forming where I had blocked the rush of air. My arm was numb from the blow, faltering and falling to my side. Shockwaves blasted from the two attacks, both battling for dominance. Loud bangs followed each one, assailing my ears. A cacophony of screams roared during the attacks. They pushed against one another, black flames and blue plasma extinguishing one another. The clash was fierce and lasted for what felt like forever. The ball of plasma dripped and expanded, while the arrow was digging deeper in. The woman stood below the chaos, breathing heavily and bleeding from her many small wounds. She looked up at the devastation above. The only thing keeping her from death was her arrow. Her hands shook, the bow falling to the side, as she summoned her sword to her hip once again. Her hands trembled, the katana releasing from the sheath. The shaft vibrated beneath her hands, its once beautiful glow now just a dim light. She brought her sword forward toward the destruction above. Her chest moved up and down, sharp, shallow breaths escaping her mouth. She took a step forward, and with it, the world went silent. The air around me froze, the screams from the colliding attacks turned silent, and the color that once clashed through the dark was sucked away. The ball of plasma was no longer blue. Its color had been stolen and replaced with a shade of white. My body followed along with the ball. My paleness turned from just an exaggeration into reality. My color, my tone, and my palate were taken from me. The crimson blood that dripped down my body had turned to a deep shade of gray. It was the only thing that contrasted my white frame. I couldn't move my body. Only my eyes obeyed my command. The Demon King, who used to be a majestic red, was now a pale masquerade. The king's body didn't move, not even a breath escaped Orobus's mouth. The king was frozen in place along with everything else in this dark abyss. I looked down at the woman who, like me, had lost all color. She did not move, did not breathe. She was stuck. Who did this? Was it her? No. If so, why would she be frozen too? I was stuck with only my thoughts. I couldn't tell if time was moving or if we were stuck in a black and white prison. I willed myself to move, trying to force my legs to take steps, but it was in vain. No matter how much I forced, my body could not break through. Suddenly, the air around me started to freeze, and shivers ran down my spine. Clouds formed as I breathed. My body was stuck, but I could feel it quake. Around me, the dark world began to tremble. Deafening wails filled the silence, cracks appeared all around, and the darkness itself broke. My head felt like it was melting, like my brain was being sucked out of my ears. More cracks appeared in the dark. Blinding light was seeping through them, illuminating the black world. With one final crack, the darkness shattered. Color soaked back into the world, the darkness now replaced by dazzling light. The sphere of plasma and the dark flame arrow roared once again, continuing their fight for dominance. I watched the two clash once again as I regained control of my body. I crumpled as I did, but oddly I did not feel pain. Instead, it was like I had been inflicted with calm, a bliss of some sort. The Demon King also regained motion, but it seemed as if it had not even realized it had been frozen. Its eyes flickered in shock, slightly closing from the light. Its mouth gaped, roaring in anger. The woman down below shone. The rainbow was gone, and in its place was a deep, dark red. She walked, and with each step the world was dyed. With every step, screams followed, dead and hollow screams. Black skulls attached to her by dark tendrils, jaws chattered as they wailed. More and more of them appeared with each dreadful step. The woman's figure was covered in black. My eyes couldn't pierce through the coverage. The only thing I could see was her outline and her sword. Her sword, it was terrifying. She held it forward toward the Demon King and continued to walk. Orobas flapped high above her, looking down upon the woman. "What have you done?" The pressure the king emitted was immense, but compared to the woman's, it was minuscule. Roaring, Orobas began trembling. Its head lifted as small balls of fire formed around its body. In a flash, the balls rushed toward the greater plasma sphere. They connected with the blue sphere and pushed it forward. With the granted boost from the smaller fireballs, the battle that was being waged between the two powerhouses' attacks finally ended as the black flame was overwhelmed, and the arrow snapped in two. The two pieces fell to the ground, clattering against that invisible floor. The ball of plasma descended at an incredible speed, its heat distorting the air. While the sphere plummeted, the woman did not falter. She walked with defiance, radiating power. Her figure was clouded by darkness and black skulls. Her sword pulsated. Red, fleshy tendrils were squirming all over the blade. Dozens of small eyes were plastered to it, each darting from side to side. Moving flesh attached to her hands as she held the blade tightly. Her figure looked up at the falling ball of destruction. Compared to it, she was an ant, waiting to be squished. But she didn't try to dodge. She didn't try to run. All she did was raise her sword toward it. With her sword raised, the clattering skulls began to scream louder, the black tendrils that held them begging to snap. In each of their empty eye sockets, a light began to explode outward. The skulls began to shine brighter than even the ball of plasma. Their shadowy outlines were vaporized from the inside out. From within, tiny lights flew out and toward the woman who was clouded in darkness. Each flew into her shadow. From where each one entered, the darkness began to fade. Dozens, maybe hundreds, of lights entered her, and with them she stepped toward the ball of plasma. With a flash, she exploded into dazzling light. It enveloped me, Orobas, and the entire world. My eyes faltered for a moment before I forced them open. I saw a sight that made me shudder. The woman was now in front of Orobas, who was still in the air. Behind her, the ball of plasma was nowhere to be found. Its heat had vanished with its form, bringing an unpleasant cold into the air. The Demon King tried to flee from her reach, but was too slow to react. With a clean slash, Orobas's head fell from its shoulders. With a swift movement from the woman, she caught it by the base, holding its eyes up to her mask. The king's eyes were wide in shock, its last feeling plastered upon its face. Fear. Orobas's body crumpled. Its wings stopped flapping, and with them, the king's body fell to the ground. Blood seeped from where it landed, its bony wings shattered, and its limbs were bent in unnatural ways. Above, the woman extended her arm, bringing the severed head to the sky. In a flash, a black flame engulfed the head, turning its red palette black and eventually reducing it to ash. Below, its body followed, igniting out of thin air. Ash flew by my eyes as the smell of burnt flesh filled my nose. I flinched, but fought the urge to vomit. I looked down to avoid more ash, and as I looked back up, my vision was blocked by a figure. The woman had appeared in front of me. I hadn't looked away for more than a second, but she was already here. With my broken body, I could not run even if I wanted to, but I felt that I had no reason to fear her. I truly felt safe for the first time since I had been born. "W, what do you want with me?" I managed to stutter out. The woman did not answer. She just stared down at my body. She brought her hand down and grasped my neck. A scream escaped my mouth as I was lifted off the ground and brought to her eye line. My eyes, with tears welling up at the sides, looked toward the fox mask. I could feel my throat begin to restrict as she squeezed harder. It was impossible to breathe, and all that was left in my dry throat was blood that oozed faster the more she squeezed. I could feel myself begin to lose consciousness, my vision blurred and darkened. Kicking while fighting to break free, gagging as she squeezed even harder. My broken arms rose but then fell to the side again. The white-haired woman brought me closer. "Wake up." She spoke those words, but I could not comprehend them. My neck snapped, and my eyes fell closed. My eyes opened wide, pain blasting through my body once again. The flesh monster was in front of me. I was back in the cave, and in front of me, there was something that hovered. Chapter 7. Demon System. The creature stood in front of it, its body of rotten flesh covered in eyes, staring down upon me. My jaw was gone, replaced with black, dripping flesh. My eye was gone again, my sight cut in half. I couldn't move with my leg shattered, and my hands were mushy messes after removing the small creatures from my body. With my remaining eye, a hovering purple square floated. On it were words that I could read, and even with my blurred vision, they were clear to me. What is this? An illusion? No, it felt real. I looked past the screen and back at the monster. It stood still, waiting for me to die from my wounds. Okay, I have some time as long as I don't threaten it. I should be fine for now. Bringing my eyes back to the screen, reading it was simple. Understanding was the hard part. You have proven your hunger, your bravery, and your pain. As I finished reading, the words began to fade. With your suffering, you have been deemed fit to acquire the demon system. The demon system? What in the world is that? As I thought about it, a piercing sensation sent shockwaves through my body. Looking down, I couldn't see a wound. Although there was nothing on me, I felt a new warmth inside my chest. Begging assimilation. The heat within me began to build up, causing my head to spin and ache. The heat was too much. My broken hands scratched my chest, trying to release the heat. It felt as if I was going to explode. A gurgling scream came from my ruined mouth as black blood spilled out. New creature analyzed. New skills developed. Demonic regeneration, LVL-1 acquired. Heightened perception, LVL-4 acquired. Due to extreme damage, heightened perception, LVL-4 has been sacrificed to force the upgrade of demonic regeneration, LVL-1. Demonic regeneration, LVL-1, LVL-3. Pain shot through me as the messages popped up in my vision. I convulsed on the cave ground. The heat in my chest dispersed, spilling itself across my entire body. My leg bent back into place, the bone snapping back into its proper position. The pain of this was incomprehensible. I tried to scream, but I had lost all control of my body. Due to overwhelming pain, a new skill has been acquired. Pain resistance, LVL-1 acquired. The pain in me reduced slightly, but the pain was still too much to handle. I felt my jaw start to reassemble, flesh growing out of my face, tendons reattaching themselves, muscles flexing and spasming as they reformed. My bone cracked and began to grow to fix the missing pieces. I could taste again as my tongue began to develop fresh taste buds. My broken throat was next to fix itself, and with it, my voice has returned to me. The feeling of my body realigning itself felt like torture. I screamed a cacophony, my body spasming against the cave wall. The monster in front of me backed away at the sight of me twisting and writhing, my screams scaring it slightly. Pain resistance, LVL1, LVL2. I did not even feel a difference in my pain. Pain resistance, LVL2, LVL3. Pain resistance, LVL3, LVL4. There's pain resistance, LVL4, LVL10. Pain resistance has reached the max level, starting the evolution of pain resistance. Pain resistance, LVL10 pain nullification, LVL1. With those final words, I finally felt the pain dwindle to a mere burning sensation. I could still feel my bones realigning and my muscles contorting to heal, but instead of immense pain, it was discomfort. The pain had transformed from being ripped apart to as if I had fallen onto a hard floor from a height of 5 meters. After a few moments, that pain within me had completely dissipated, and with a final pop, my eye had reformed inside of my head. I could finally see clearly again. The monster blinked wildly as it looked upon my fixed body. Its face showed shock and confusion, as if it were thinking of how this woman had fully healed. It snarled as it opened its face once again to show me its 2 sharp fangs. It brought its front legs up as if to drive its sharp talons into me. As it did, my eyes widened. I planted my hands into the wall against my back and pushed off to dodge the creature's attack. I rolled to the side just in time, the monster's talons piercing the stone where I had just been seated. I ran to the height of the monster, trying to distance myself as much as possible. How am I supposed to kill this thing? It's way bigger than the other ones I had killed, so I can't just smash it. The creature screamed at me as I thought of a way to defeat it. It dove at me, and as I tried to sidestep it, one of its talons slashed my leg. The pain was less than I expected, but that did not mean my body did not react. I felt my calf spasm, and I tumbled to the ground. I pushed my hand against the wound, trying to halt the blood and contortion. To my amazement, after a few moments, the cut on my leg began to heal. Watching in real time, I saw muscle begin to reform, and skin begin to grow and reattach itself. The pain was gone after a few seconds as well. What has happened to me? Did this demon system truly give me these new powers? I looked up at the monster again to see it skittering towards me. While being in this position on the ground, I could not dodge in time as it descended upon me. It slammed its talon into my waist, sending a piercing pain through my body. But I withstood it without much trouble. The monster had me pinned down. Its drooping face was right above where I lay. The creature flashed a cruel grin and then showed me its fangs. It dug its talons deeper into my flesh, causing it to turn black and bubble. I screamed as it did this. Pain engulfed me for a few seconds, even with this demon system. I looked up at the beast while biting my cheek. Its foremost eye blinked, and with it brought its fangs down. I twisted my neck, avoiding its bite, and it got stuck in the ground. I grabbed at its legs that were stabbing deep into me and pulled with all my strength. After a moment, I dislodged its talons and swung my arms, tossing the beast to the side. The monster cried out as it rolled across the ground and slammed into the cave wall. The beast looked at me with rage in its multitude of eyes, but behind that rage, I saw something else. I saw fear. A big smile plastered across my face. The giant lump of rotten flesh was actually afraid. But even though I was afraid, I still had no way to kill this thing. I doubt I'll get lucky enough to throw it around again, and I don't think punching it would be very effective. While I was lost in my thoughts, the monster took action again. It plunged its talons deep into the walls and began to climb up the side of the cavern. Is it running away? But it has the advantage. Is it truly that scared or just stupid? I watched as the monster scurried its way up into the darkness. How high is this cave, really? The sound of its stabbing dissipated as well, leaving me in silence once again. What a terrifying creature. The thought of being turned into one of those made my body shiver. That would be a terrible fate. I looked around the cave, still on guard just in case it came back, but after a few moments, I finally relaxed. I looked at my hands. They were perfect. No black bubbles, no missing flesh, just my pale skin. Signing, I let out a breath that I didn't know I was holding. I haven't felt like this since the moment I was born. Was this truly thanks to this thing called the demon system? As I thought about it, a purple square opened in front of my eyes. The letters looked like weird scribbles and patterns, but I was able to read them. On the square, even though I could read the words, I could not fully comprehend what they meant. Name, ###. Title, ###. Race, demon-born mythical. Tier, 1 fledgling. Class, devourer mythical. LVL, 1/5/100. Blood, 1/100. Skills, intrinsic, gluttony LVL 1. Tier 1. Demonic regeneration LVL 3-17 blood. Tier 2. Pain nullification LVL 1-2294.3 blood. What is all of this? I examined the screen, trying to understand what I was reading. Was this really all about me? The name was empty, so that definitely matches me, but what is the rest of this? Also, blood, what does that even mean? I scratched my head as I looked at the words again. Demon-born. I looked at the race part of the screen, getting curious about it. Suddenly, the screen disappeared and new words appeared. Demon-born are powerful creatures born in Mortu's Lux, known as creatures of pain. Demon-born are said to be in short supply due to the dangers of the realm below. I am a demon. Mortu's Lux is the name of this world. If this is all true, then I am learning what this place is. As I finished reading, I focused on the next word in the list, hoping for a description like the last one. Fledgling, the lowest tier of demon-born. Is that it? I thought I would get a little more information. I sighed and moved on. Devourer, a class that belongs to only one person across all realms, allows infinite growth through the process of devouring enemies. Infinite growth. That sounds amazing. Is that why, after I ate that smaller monster earlier, I gained a skill? This seems too good to be true. Is it as powerful as it sounds? Speaking of skills, why do I have 3? I only remember acquiring 2. I focused on the ones I saw earlier, trying to display a description once again. Demonic regeneration, LVL 3. Boosts the regeneration of physical damage by 30% if you are of the demon-born race. 30%. That's a huge amount. No wonder my wounds healed so quickly. This is an amazing skill. So next is pain nullification, LVL 1. I focused on the skill the same way I did with the previous one. Pain nullification, LVL 1. Nullifies pain to a certain degree. That's why I didn't feel as much pain. It's a great skill to have, but it wasn't one I got from the monster I ate. It's one I acquired through my own situation. So does that mean I could acquire skills like that as well? It also didn't have a percentage. Is it something I have to feel to understand? Finally, I looked at the skill that I had not seen before. Gluttony LVL 1. A skill acquired from the class Devourer. When devouring a living organism, you have a chance to obtain either a new skill or upgrade an already acquired skill. It also allows forcibly upgrading an acquired skill using the blood bank. So I got this skill from my class, and it lets me grow by eating my enemies. I see. So as long as I keep killing, I can grow stronger. And now I understand what blood means. I looked back on the skills, and what surprised me. Tier 1 Demonic Regeneration, LVL 3-17 blood. Tier 2 Pain Nullification, LVL 1-2294.3 blood. Why is the cost of pain nullification so high? I noticed the large price difference, and the only difference between the skills was the tier. So skills have tiers. and that affects the cost to upgrade them too. That is good information to know. Looking at my almost empty blood bank, it looks like I have a long way to go on forcibly upgrading pain nullification. After checking over the purple screen one more time, I finally decided to take a break. I bent my legs and planted myself on the floor. I thought about my experiences and of that dream I had before unlocking the demon system. It felt so real, but I'm not sure if my mind was playing tricks on me while I was on the brink of death. I thought of the woman who saved me, but also killed me. That made no fucking sense. I thought of Oroba's, was it a demon like me, but on a higher tier? It sure seemed demon-like. But even the literal demon king didn't compare to that white-haired woman. She was terrifying. Just thinking about her made me shiver. Her power was amazing. Letting out a deep breath, I brought myself to my feet. Maybe one day I can be like them, but for now I need to survive and find a way out of this cave. I started walking before I felt a familiar beat beneath my feet. Badump. Well, shit. Chapter 8. The Cave. Badump. Feeling the ground rumble, I braced myself for what was coming. In panic, I reached out towards the cave wall, grabbing onto anything that could hold me steady. What I found was a tiny crevice that could fit my small hand inside. Without thinking, I grasped at the hole. In the next moment, I felt the cave start to rumble, and after a few seconds, the cave went from vibrating to quaking. Watching as the cave walls jolted and pieces of rock broke off, I brought my free arm up to defend my face from a tiny pebble landslide coming towards me. Rocks fell upon me, sending shockwaves through my body as they impacted. My bones creaked, and hot red blood dripped from the gashes that the rocks inflicted. Keeping my head low to avoid the pebbles, I watched as my feet shook from the earthquake that I was experiencing. A burning sensation exploded on my scalp. After a few moments, I could taste my own blood as it dripped down my face. The taste of blood was surprisingly delightful. I wish it weren't my own. Suddenly, my feet lifted off the ground as a massive boom resonated from all around the cave. I felt weightless as I drifted upwards. The only thing keeping me near the wall was my hand. My fingers bled as they dug deep into the stone crevice, keeping me from going higher. As I floated in the cave, the shaking suddenly stopped. The momentum that had carried me up lessened, sending me crashing down. With the sudden change of direction, my fingers gave out, snapping from the tension and releasing their grip from the cave wall. With a loud bang, my head smashed into the ground, sending a jolt through my body and making everything go black. I awoke a few moments later with a throbbing pain in my temple, making it hard to think properly. I lay on the ground, bruised and bloodied, but alive. I tried to push myself up, but to my dismay, my fingers on my right hand were all purple and bent in awkward ways. I sat myself up against the wall, resting my head against the hard, cold bedrock. Biting my cheek, I watched as demonic regeneration LVL3 took effect. My purple fingers began to regain their pale color and vibrate violently, snapping back into place. Grunting as they did, I held back the tears that formed at the corner of my eyes. Pain nullification LVL1 was sure useful, but that still hurts. Breathing in, the pain in my head dissipated, leaving me feeling calm. Bringing myself to my feet, I observed the cave once again. Now there were many more stalagmites on the floor, and the walls had deep cracks running through them. I don't know if this cave can take too many more of these. After deliberating, I decided to head back to where I had first fallen into the cave. My first few steps were wobbly, and I ended up falling to my knees. I haven't walked properly since I got out of that blood, and even then, with my legs so destroyed, I could barely walk back then, too. With my high from the quake wearing off, my legs trembled even when I stood. Deciding to take it easy, I walked alongside the cave wall, using it as a brace to hold myself. Slowly, I made my way along the wall, towards the entrance. How far had I made it into this cave? I don't remember it taking this long. After walking for what felt like an hour, my legs had stopped shaking, and I could walk with relative ease. As I walked for a few more minutes, I had to halt. To my dismay, a wall stood before me, a wall of varying rocks. My eyes widened as I realized what had happened. The cave roof had collapsed, causing a cave-in. I felt tears form in my eyes as my hope to escape was torn out of me. Screaming, I fell to my knees, punching the ground until my knuckles bled. My white hair fell in front of my face, tears getting absorbed in its beauty. My nails dug into the rocks, trying to tear a hole in the stone wall, but it was no use. All I could do was watch as blood dripped from my hands, only to be halted as they healed fully. After releasing my anger, I stood up, facing the wall. With one final punch, I hit the wall, feeling my bones shatter, but then I start to reform almost immediately. Turning away from the wall, I walked away, descending deeper into the cave. I have to live for all my siblings who died. I walked deeper into the cave, stepping over fallen sharp rocks and avoiding drops. My feet bled constantly from the rough ground, but healed quickly enough not to allow me to feel anything. All that was left were bloody footprints, displaying where I had traveled. I walked until I saw blood littered all over the cave, black and red blood. My blood. I knew I had made it back to where I had met that creature, based on the carnage that could be found. I jolted as visions of my broken body flooded my mind, black gooey flesh melting and falling off the bone. The image of my leg being broken to the point where it was holding on by mere threads. My own eyeball resting in my lap. I held back the urge to vomit, only slightly gagging at the gruesome thoughts. I need to be strong. I can't fear pain. Looking at the blood-soaked cave, I ran my hand against it. My hand had stayed pale, the blood dried against the cave, staying stuck to the rocks. With a deep breath, I continued to walk deeper into the cave, heading into the darkness ahead. After a few steps, the silence that I had grown accustomed to disappeared, replaced by a sound I knew all too well. The sound of scurrying made my body shiver. The monster from before was moving, and it was close enough to hear. My eyes darted all around the cave, trying to pinpoint the beast's position, but unfortunately, I could not spot the terrifying creature. My ears perked as they tried to locate the monster's sound, but the cave's echoes made its movements seem to be all around me, making it almost impossible to tell where the sound originated. Instead of trying to search for the monster, I ran to the nearest wall, backing myself up against it, reducing the area from which the monster could come. Bracing my back against the wall, my eyes kept moving side to side, waiting for the beast to show itself. I knew the beast could come from above, but if it did, that would mean it would have to be close enough for me to hear it. This wall is the safest place for me to be. Sweat dripped down my brow, my breathing was fast, and my heart was beating at a terrifying pace. I could feel the blood pumping through my body, and fear rushed through me, causing me to be on edge. I could feel my arms quivering, the taste of blood flooded my mouth as my cheek ripped from my teeth. The skittering echoed all around me, sending false signals to my brain. My mind couldn't process all the noise I was hearing, to the point where my thoughts started to fog. It sounded as if there were hundreds of the creatures, just waiting to pounce. The noise was deafening. Swish. Swish. And then silence. The noise had completely stopped. My eyes widened in surprise at the sudden stop. The cave was now empty, the only noise was my ragged breath and the beat of my own heart. In front of me was only darkness. I waited, expecting the beast to appear, but it did not. Minutes went by and nothing happened. The cave remained silent, my breathing began to calm, and my mind started to settle down. Huff. Wheeze. I brought my hands to my knees to take a deep breath. Crack. My blood ran cold. I looked up, and what I saw terrified me. The beast had itself planted on the wall right above me. Its face had already fallen open, revealing its menacing black fangs. Its foremost eye was directed right at me, causing goosebumps to form. The beast screeched when we made eye contact, distancing itself from the wall and descending on me. My body felt frozen, while my mind felt like it was operating at 100 times its normal speed. Fear gripped my heart, but in that moment, my frozen body began to move on its own. I dove forward out of the way of the beast, nearly avoiding 2 of its talons that landed where I had just been. I tumbled to the ground after the close call, but the monster recovered faster than I did. It screeched at me and charged. I crawled along the ground, pushing hard to try to get away, but my speed while sliding against the hard floor was much slower than the creature's. I looked for anything that could help me, but nothing was within reach. I looked behind me and searched the floor. I saw it. Around a few meters away was a small stalagmite that had fallen from the roof, just big enough that it could fit in my hand. I tried to reach back and grab it, but it was of no use. It was too far. Looking back at the monster who was almost upon me, I cried out in dismay. It jumped at me, aiming to plunge its talons into my chest. Reactively, my foot shot out, contacting the monster's face. It screeched as I felt a snap. One of its fangs had broken off, leaving it with only one. The beast flipped through the air and landed a few meters away. I used this as an opportunity to get to the stalagmite. I grabbed it and held it forward towards the creature, who had now recovered. It was rushing at me again. Anger shone behind each of its disgusting eyes. It jumped forward at me. I kicked out again, but it used one of its 8 talons to quickly change its direction by planting into the ground. It landed upon me, sticking its remaining fang into my shoulder, pumping black poison into my body. I screamed out. The pain was intense, even with pain nullification LVL1. The monster dug into me, its talons piercing both of my legs, and its eyes looked into mine. What I saw in their reflection was my face, covered in fear. It shuddered as if it was enjoying this. It was feasting on my pain. I screamed out again as I felt more poison enter my body. The pain was then enhanced by demonic regeneration LVL3 as I felt my body trying to repair itself, only to be corrupted again. It was like a constant circle of pain. My mind started to fog as the pain started to overwhelm it. I looked at my hand to see that I was still holding the sharp rock. With all my might, I brought it up and stabbed it down into the creature's side. On top of me, the monster screamed out, releasing its fang from my shoulder. I felt its hot, acidic blood spew out of where I stabbed, melting both the rock and my hand. I cried out as black and red blood mixed, falling to the ground. My hand could barely move, as the skin was almost completely gone. My hand tried to heal, but melted almost as soon as the skin started to grow back, causing me even more excruciating pain. Tears ran down my face as the monster plunged back into me, corroding more of my flesh. Pain nullification, LVL 1-2. The pain lessened slightly at the pop-up of the words, causing me to regain some clarity, only for that clarity to disperse as the monster plunged 2 of its talons into my stomach. With the talons entering my abdomen, I felt a pool of blood form in my mouth. Coughing all over the beast, my red blood gave the black beast some shine. The beast gave a happy wiggle at the sight of my blood, twisting its talons to increase the torment. The sight of the beast angered me. Is this thing really going to be the end of me? More blood spewed out of my mouth. I felt my heart pumping fast to replace the lost blood. My good hand went down to one of the talons, trying to pull it out, but it was no use. Once my hand reached the beast, one of its free talons sped towards my arm, piercing and immobilizing it. I gargled out a cry as it did. Heat began to leave my body with the blood, leaving me shivering. I could feel myself fading. I couldn't do anything. My only weapon melted the instant I pierced the beast, and my only free limb was covered in acidic blood. I looked at where I had stabbed the creature and saw it start to heal. It seems to have demonic regeneration, too. I guess that makes sense, since I got the skill from one of its species. I coughed again and brought my ruined hand up and drove it into the monster's wound. The monster screamed and shook in pain. I felt my hand going deeper into the creature. I felt as if my hand was engulfed in acid, causing me excruciating pain. I could feel it melt and reform over and over again. My demonic regeneration, LVL3, was working its hardest to keep my hand from completely melting. I was healing, but I knew it wasn't fast enough. My hand was losing structure too fast. The feeling of my hand moving through flesh and blood made me feel weird, but I had to keep pushing. I needed to do something to gain an advantage. My eyes looked upon the creature who was now writhing in pain due to my hand. It had removed its fang and was trying to attack my hand instead. It was no longer paying attention to my face, which gave me the perfect opportunity. With determination, I drove my head forward, biting into the monster's flesh. It was disgusting, and I could feel my mouth melting again. The monster cried out and removed its talons from my limbs, trying to escape from me. But it was too late. The instant its talons left my body, my other hand wrapped around the creature, pulling it closer to me while keeping it from escaping. I bit down hard, ripping pieces of muscle and flesh out. I took it into my mouth, swallowing the chunk of the monster whole. The monster cried as I did, and in desperation, it started digging its talons into my chest, trying to break through my sternum. As it slammed into my chest, I started to wheeze and choke. But the piece of flesh had already made it into my stomach. Demonic regeneration, LVL34. With that notification, I felt my body change and start to heal even faster. I drove my hand deeper into the creature, causing it to twitch and wriggle even more. It slammed into me harder, cracking my ribs. My breathing decreased, as if one of my lungs had given out. As my hand moved, I felt something within the creature, something that was squishy, but different from the flesh I had been tearing through. With a thrust, I grabbed onto the object, and as I did, I saw the monster's many eyes widen in fear. It began convulsing and fighting even harder to break free. I yanked the object from within the monster, and a loud cacophony of snaps could be heard from within the monster. I pulled the thing from the beast, causing blood to flow out of the wound at an incredible speed. Once my hand had fully left the beast, the monster finally stopped moving, falling to the ground, blood seeping from each of its eyes. Acquired 10 exp. In my hand, the object I had grabbed moved. It beat like a drum until finally coming to a halt. My melted hand brought the thing to my face. It was the beast's heart. I looked at the purple screen in front of me. Class, Devourer Mythical. With my eyes closed, I brought it to my mouth and took a deep bite out of it. Chapter 9. Run. As I chewed the black heart, my mouth burned from the blood that gushed out from the bite. I cried out as I swallowed, praying for the pain to go away. As pieces of flesh made their way down my throat, I took another bite, now devouring around half of the complete heart. Midway through chewing, the purple box popped into my vision, showing me exactly what I wanted to see. Acidic blood, LVL1 acquired. As I read the message, my body began to burn. It felt as if I was melting from the inside out. I screamed, dropping the heart. I began to claw at my skin, trying to release the heat in my body. I watched as my skin began to bubble, and I felt my organs start to dissolve. I writhed on the ground as I spat up blood. Where the blood landed, the ground began to dissolve. My eyes widened. Was my own blood melting me from the inside out? Pain nullification, LVL23. Due to high exposure to acid, a new skill has been acquired. Acidic resistance, LVL1 acquired. Due to high compatibility, acidic blood, LVL1, and acidic resistance, LVL1 will attempt fusion. Attempting fusion. Fusion success. One with acid acquired. The burning in my body came to a halt, to then be replaced with a warmth that I had never felt before. The terrible pain that I had just experienced had vanished without a trace. My skin no longer bubbled, and my body felt rejuvenated. Feeling the warmth, I looked at my arms and saw a radiant glow. My paleness was gone, replaced by a brighter tone. Resting my head against the wall, I wept, tears of pure joy. I really thought that was the end of me. The pain was immense, but the skill I got must have been worth it. Quickly, I opened the demon system. Name, ###. Title, ###. Race, demon-born mythical. Tier, 1 fledgling. Class, devourer mythical. LVL, 115/100. Blood, 1/100. Skills. Intrinsic. Gluttony LVL 1. 1 with acid LVL 1. Tier 1. Demonic regeneration LVL 4. Tier 2. Pain nullification LVL 3. I focused on the new skill. 1 with acid LVL 1. 1 with acid LVL 1 transforms the user's entire body into a perfect acidic container. All body fluids are acidic. The skill grants full immunity to acidic attacks. Oh, that. It would have been really useful before I fought that monster. I'm complaining right now, but truly, that is an amazing skill. Looking back at my screen, the numbers after LVL 1 have gone up, but my blood number has not increased. Do I truly have to devour this entire thing? I shuddered, looking down at the grotesque corpse below me. Well, I guess I'll dig in. I picked up the half-eaten heart that I had dropped on the floor earlier. I brought it to my mouth and took a bite. I braced myself for my mouth to begin burning again, but to my surprise, the only thing that hurt me was the heart's taste. So this is the power of 1 with acid LVL 1. The acid from the beast didn't hurt me at all, and I actually ate the heart quicker due to my saliva breaking down the heart completely. When I finally swallowed the last piece of the heart, a sight unfolded in front of me. The corpse of the beast began to shrivel up, almost as if all the blood had been taken from it. I watched the sight, surprised at the sudden situation. Was I too slow to eat it, or... I opened the demon system to confirm my thoughts. Blood, 3/100. My blood had increased. So was that it? Did I only have to eat the heart for me to gain the blood? But any part of the monster gives me a skill. So, shouldn't I eat the heart last? Or is it only the first bite that has a chance to give me a skill? The demon system did not provide a clear enough description, so most of my information had to be found out or guessed. This sucks, but I can't complain. From just my basic understanding, I have an amazing class and skill to go along with it. I'll figure things out eventually. Well, I have this new skill, so I should probably try it out. How should I use it? Should I spit on them? No, that wouldn't be effective. I looked around the cave searching for something to spark an idea in my mind. All I could see was rocks and dried blood. I bent over and grabbed a sharp rock that rested near me. Closing my eyes, I brought the rock to my wrist and slashed. I whimpered as the cut went deep, but after a moment I opened my eyes. It hurt, but not too badly. Hot red blood dripped down my wrist. The warmth radiating from it made me feel cozy, but as I watched it drip, the effects of the blood shocked me. It wasn't that strong, but each drop made a tiny hole around 5 centimeters deep in the rock. Wow! I flailed my arm out towards the cave wall and watched as a streak of blood splattered along it. Within a few moments, the wall had lost a few centimeters of thickness where the blood had landed. I smiled when I saw the effects, and did it 2 more times before suddenly tumbling to the side. I had been hit with a burst of lightheadedness. I held onto the wall for support as my wrist began to heal and seal itself. Don't overuse it. Noted. I waited another minute before my head felt right. Okay, 3 is my limit. I looked into the darkness and decided it was time to continue forward. I looked for a new rock to take with me since the one I had used to cut myself had been reduced to mush. Once I found a new one, I held it tightly and walked deeper into the cave. I walked through the cave, noticing things I had not before. There were tiny holes in the walls, around 1/2 meter in circumference. I poked my head into a few of them, but they went so far into the wall that I could not see the end. The deeper I walked, the more and more of these holes appeared in the cave, some even starting to appear in the floor. After I noticed the first few in the floor, I unfortunately missed the small hole that was in front of me. My foot fell into the hole, causing me to tumble and bash my face against the hard rock. I screamed out loud at the sudden jolt of pain in my nose. Hot blood dripped down my face and onto the stone, leaving small holes where they landed. I cursed myself for my carelessness. Trying to pull myself up, I found that my foot was stuck. What? This hole is definitely big enough for me to pull my foot out easily. I yanked again, but this time I gained some ground. Down in the hole, I started to hear a noise, the sound of rock crumbling. Something had grabbed onto my foot and was climbing its way up. Shit, pulling my leg harder, I heard a snap, which freed my foot from the hole. After escaping, I heard a screech from down below. The noise made me shiver, because it was a screech that I knew all too well. I backed away from the hole, making sure I did not fall into any others. Watching the hole, I saw 2 talons claw their way out of the hole, then 4, 6, and finally 8. The legs pulled a disgusting body of black, rotten, liquid flesh that was covered in eyes. The monster had a terribly disfigured smile on its face before it split open, revealing 2 black fangs. The monster screeched and began rushing towards me. A flash of what the previous one of these monsters did to me crossed my mind, how it had pumped acid straight into my body while holding me down with razor-sharp talons. I did not want to experience that again. As the monster dove at me, I used the rock I had grabbed earlier to cut my left wrist open, revealing the crimson blood inside. I flicked my wrist, sending a wave of blood towards the beast. It slowed its rush in shock at the blood being thrown at it, but decided that there was no threat and continued to rush forward. As the blood came into contact with the beast, a sizzling sound could be heard from the affected skin. The beast screeched to a halt, screaming in agony, clawing at the infected flesh. I watched as it dug into the monster, but to my surprise, it stopped after only burning around 2 centimeters of flesh. Did this beast have acid resistance? After a few moments of agony, the beast continued its charge. I watched in horror as the burned parts of the monster also began to regrow. I can't stand here, awestruck. I ran towards the beast, flicking my wrist again, sending another rush of blood towards the monster. As the blood rushed forward, I grabbed a nearby stalagmite, following the blood that I had thrown. The monster, now learning from its mistakes, dodged out of the way of the blood. But after fighting one of these before, I expected it to dodge this time. And due to it only being focused on the blood, it was too slow to react to me right where the creature landed after dodging. The beast looked at me in shock as I brought the stalagmite up and stabbed it into the side. Using my strength, I drove it deep into the creature and pushed it onto its side, immobilizing it for the time being. While it was on the side, I let go of the spike since it had become useless, and decided to jam my hand into its deep wound. Black blood squirted from where my hand entered it, masking my face in its dark nature. The monster screamed as I dug deeper into it. The creature's head began to spasm, trying to turn in my direction. As it did, I used my free hand to push its head into the ground, keeping it from moving any further. With only 2 hands, I could not avoid its multiple legs that struck me, piercing small holes in my body. I flinched as they entered me, but I kept digging, searching for the creature's heart. I could feel my open wrist inside the monster start to heal, but the blood that it had released had done enough to the monster already, as I could see an entire hole in the creature's stomach. I watched as the creature tried to pull the talons out and attack me again, but to its dismay, the talon had completely dissolved, leaving a dull stump where it used to be. The small holes healed quickly. Seeing this, the monster's eyes began to jerk back and forth, searching for anything that might help it. I dug deep into the creature until I finally felt it. I grasped the creature's heart. As I did, the monster screamed out, flailing and bashing itself against the hard rock. With a hard tug, the monster stopped moving. I pulled its heart out of its body. Acquired 10 exp. I smiled as I saw the number pop up on the screen. I did it. I killed it so much easier than last time. I looked at the heart, ate it up after taking a few bites. As soon as I finished the heart, the creature's corpse shriveled up. Heightened Perception LVL 4 acquired. I had gotten the skill that the system had sacrificed earlier. As the message dissipated, I felt my eyes burn and I closed them. Tears seeped through my closed eyelids, and after a minute or so of rubbing, I opened them. With the skill, it felt as if my perception of the world changed. The dark cave I was once in now seemed so bright. The small circle that I used only to be able to see had now grown exponentially bigger. Now that I could see, I could finally understand the true scale of this cave, and it was massive. In some parts, I could see the roof, but most of it was still shrouded in darkness. I wonder how high it goes. The cave's size surprised me, but that was not all. Those tiny holes, like the one that the monster had climbed out of, were all over the place. I already knew there were a few, but not this much. There had to be at least 100 of them. I took a step forward towards one of the closer ones and looked into it. I could now see deeper into the hole, but darkness still loomed in it. Sighing, I was about to turn away before a movement from the hole made me look closer. In the hole, I watched as another one of those creatures made its way towards me, pulling itself forward by its talons. I backed away from the hole quickly, preparing myself for it to emerge, but a noise from behind me made me turn my head. It was coming from another hole. My heart sank as I ran towards the new hole, and in it was another creature. I backed away from that one as well, putting myself in the middle of the cave. I kept my eyes locked on both holes, but as I did, more noises appeared from a third hole, and then a fourth, and then a fifth. Every hole started to make noises, and from each one a creature began to emerge. I looked upon the holes in horror, and my instincts kicked in. I turned and ran as fast as I could. Chapter 10. The Fall. My breathing quickened as I ran through the cave, jumping over and avoiding the new holes that appeared in front of me. Behind me, I heard hundreds of tiny legs clattering against the floor. I looked back and saw at least a few dozen of the creatures chasing after me. The sound they created made me want to vomit. It sounded like a whirlpool of flesh and bones crashing into one another. I sped up as I heard the new holes start to make noises as well, tiny sharp talons clawing at each of their entrances. Sweat poured down my face with each step that I took. My white hair was dangling in front of me, covering my eyes. My breath hitched with my movement, slowing my pace. The rough, jagged rocks dug into my heels while I pushed hard off the ground, propelling myself forward. I watched as a new hole appeared in front of me, and as it did, I pushed hard and exploded upwards. As I leaped over the hole, in the milliseconds I hovered over it, I saw a pair of sharp talons reaching towards me. Without a moment's notice, I twisted my body out of the way as 2 talons flew out of the hole, piercing the air where I had just been. Although I had avoided the talons, the dodge had caused me to lose balance. While being midair, I looked down at the ground as I felt my body begin to tilt. Pulling my hands forward, I landed face first, rolling over myself on the floor. Looking back, the monsters were almost upon me, and now, with my delay, the holes that surrounded me started to sprout the horrid creatures. Screeches came from all directions, making my body tense. To my sides, monsters had appeared, now staring at me with their melted faces. The first creature charged at me, revealing its dark fangs. I braced myself and dodged out of the way, causing the beast to slam its head into the wall. As it did, the next beast dove at me, but just as it did, I kicked it straight in the underbelly, causing it to roar and get sent flying. Climbing to my feet, I began to take off in the opposite direction from the wall monsters. As I ran, a hole rumbled in front of me, and to my horror, I watched as a new monster emerged from it. I thought of slowing, but the sound of nearing death dispelled that idea. I dashed towards the creature, surprising the feisty beast for a moment. In the next second, I ran straight through the creature before it could react. The pure blunt force of me ramming the monster caused it to tumble back and fall back into its own hole. While I ran past, a loud screech of anger echoed from the hole, before eventually disappearing into the darkness. I dashed forward, dodging holes and talons alike. I was running out of energy, and my body was struggling to keep up with the strain. I could feel my muscles vibrate and convulse from overexertion. My mind raced, trying to figure out a way to survive. I knew I couldn't run forever, that eventually my body would fail me. I tried to think of ways to escape, but I was in a cave that seemed never to end. I did not want it to end here, but from the looks of things, this might be it. No, I won't stop. I will escape. Through the cramps, I dashed forward, looking for anywhere to go. Tears welled at the corners of my eyes, but I held them in. With every step, a shock bolted up my leg, and with each shock, despair started to creep into my soul. I ran through the cave, hoping for anything that could save me. After around 100 meters, the cave seemed to get smaller, and after another 80, it got even smaller. The cave was shrinking, and it was shrinking fast. After another minute of running, the cave was just large enough to fit another person and me, and a minute after that, only my petite body was able to run through the cave. I watched as the roof shrank as well, descending to be just around a meter higher than me. As the cave tightened, my breathing seemed to shorten as less oxygen reached my lungs. Looking back, I watched in horror as, from head to toe, the cave had been completely covered in those monsters. Some clung to the walls, some to the roof, but the majority just piled over each other on the floor, making it seem like the cave itself was closing in on me. Eventually, the cave narrowed to the point where I had to shimmy to move, slowing my speed rapidly. The sound of liquid flesh echoed loudly in the tight space, and once the space had grown almost too tight, I felt a piercing pain in my lower leg. Looking down, I saw my calf dripping blood, as it had been run through by one of the creature's talons. My acidic blood allowed me to pull away, tearing the talon from the leg completely, but the damage had already been done. The horde had reached me. I looked up in horror as the wave of monsters collapsed down upon me. I felt multiple of my ribs snap, along with both my legs. I screamed out in pain as dozens of talons pierced me. Blood rushed out of my mouth at an alarming rate, spilling onto one of the creatures on top of me. The monster squirmed as it began to melt, only to be replaced by another. My body was getting riddled with stab marks, and the creatures started to bite into me one after another. I felt them try to inject their acid, but to no avail. It did not affect me due to one with acid LVL1. When the creatures realized the acid was useless, they switched to relentlessly stabbing me with their talons. I choked on my blood as they relentlessly dug into me. As they stabbed, the talons melted, but once they did, they would just be replaced by new ones. The dozens of flowing creatures worked in unison, stabbing into me. I started to suffocate under the weight of the beasts. My mouth dried up and my tears started to dry up, leaving streaks of salt on my cheeks. As my eyes started to blur, my neck lost strength, causing my head to hit the ground. I lay there, each breath coming slower than the last. Blood seeped from the multiple holes left in me, and even as each hole healed, 2 more would appear in its place. I could feel heat building in my skull as the weight pushed me into the ground. I coughed again, spewing more blood out. My head rested against the ground, my eyes starting to droop. My ears were now ringing, drowning out the sound of mixing flesh and bone. Beneath me, the cold, hard ground cracked beneath the weight. Acid mixed into the ground destroys everything in its way. I could barely hear myself think anymore, and the only thing I could feel was the vibrations and pain caused by the monsters. It felt like the whole cave was shaking, that the whole world was shaking. Below, the vibrations rumbled in a chaotic melody, having no rhythm to their fury. But beneath those vibrations, there was something else. There was a beat, a perfect rhythmic beat, a beat that I had heard so many times before. Badump. My heart paused, and my eyes flashed open. The pain that had been wearing me down vanished instantly, being replaced by something else. Something that made my blood rush, that made my mind set ablaze, that made me believe. It was hope. I raised my hands, pushing them through the mass of flesh. While they raised, I felt along the wall, looking for something. After a few seconds of searching, I had found it. On both sides, I stuck my hands into small crevices that the acid and steel had created. I dug deep into the rock, using my bloody fingers to create perfect rock holds. I clenched my body, through blood and pain, waiting for the next beat. Badump, badump. After those, I willed my broken legs to raise themselves to meet my chest. And with them there, I held my head low. Badump, badump, badump. As the drum's pace quickened, I closed my eyes. And with one final beat, the world came crashing down. Badump. The cave began to shake. It quaked with a power I had never experienced before. The monsters trembled as the cave rocked, shrieks of terror emanating from every one of them. I held onto the sides as hard as I could, feeling the bruises start to form as the hard rock ruined my fingers. As the shaking worsened, the monsters tried to plant themselves in the walls to keep steady, but in the small space, and with many of them missing a few talons, only a few succeeded. The rest of the beast began to get flung around the cave, bashing into anything that crossed their path. I watched as monsters turned to mush as they impacted, spewing acid in all directions. Some survived, only to then be thrown up again by the cave's movements. I bounced up and down, but with my hands locked in place and my weight being focused on the center, I was not tossed as badly as the creatures were. I watched as a decently sized creature flew towards me, slamming hard into my chest, leaving me gasping for air. The monster landed in my lap, and in desperation, it stabbed its talons into me, hoping to use my body as a stabilizer. I screamed in pain as it did, but fortunately, the pain did not last long, as my acidic blood turned the creature's talons to nothing, sending the monster splattering into the nearest wall during the next shake. The number of the beast had been cut in half, with many more dying as well. As for me, I felt my hands slipping, but as I saw all the monsters cowering in fear, I decided that with my weight, this would be the only time to distance myself. With a tug, my hands popped free, allowing them to fall onto my lap. My fingers were purple and dripped blood, but after a few moments, demonic regeneration LVL4 kicked in, giving back the beautiful tone they once had. I watched as my legs snapped back into place, causing me to flinch instinctively. With another shake, I was launched into the air, hitting the roof and tumbling back down. Blood dripped from where I had been struck, but I focused on moving forward. I kept my head low to avoid falling rocks and crawled on all fours to help fight the earthquake. I had to squeeze through the cave as the walls got even smaller. As I did this, the monsters roared in anger, but none dared unattach themselves from the cave walls. With another beat, I fared better, bracing myself between the walls only to be lifted slightly. After I had recovered, I crawled some more, hoping to make it to the end of this damn cave. To my dismay, as I reached out, my hand did not feel air, but instead hard rock. I brought my head up to see a giant pure bedrock wall. My heart sank at the sight of it. My eyes darted around, searching for a new path, but I found none. It truly was a dead end. I felt my blood boil and rage take hold of my mind. I screamed as I realized that I was doomed. My knuckles bled and snapped as I punched the wall, leaving tiny fist imprints in the solid rock. I could feel the shaking begin to settle down, and the sounds of the monsters roared behind me as they started to move once again. I tried my best. Laughing and crying, I sat myself up against the wall, looking into the darkness while awaiting the horde's arrival. My will to fight was shattered. There was only one of me, and dozens of them. I'm so stupid, so stupid. Punching my half-healed legs, I wanted to make myself hurt. I was never going to accomplish anything. What was I thinking? My siblings truly deserved better. I saw a talon appear in the darkness, and with it, my eyes closed shut. I spoke for the first time since I entered these caves. My beautiful voice radiated through the cave. Please let me rest. The roar of the monsters echoed as they approached me. I felt the first creature approach me as hot breath landed on my face. The smell was rancid, making me want to gag, but I was just too tired. I listened to the monster, the time between each breath. The monster gargled, then ground its fangs together. I felt more monsters approaching, piling up on one another, all of them trying to get a good look at me. Finally, as I felt myself drift into rest, a sound echoed through the cave. Not the beat of the drum, not the monsters, not me. The sound of cracking. Suddenly, a loud boom exploded in the cave, and I became weightless. I jolted my eyes open, looking all around me. I saw that the cave floor had broken apart. Beneath me was nothing but a black void. I screamed as gravity took hold, and I descended into the abyss, accompanied by the monsters whose screams overlapped with my terror.